BoJack Horseman is probably the best show on Netflix, at least in my opinion. I love this show. It's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and watch it. So if you don't know what BoJack Horseman is, it's pretty much the story of a washed-up celebrity struggling with depression who constantly does terrible things, but equally, if not more, feels terrible about those terrible things. Another aspect of the show, and the reason that it's cartoon, is because there are several anthropomorphic animals along with normal people, and they kind of just coexist. They don't really go over it that much. There are a lot of animal jokes in it. But anyways, that's not what we're here to talk about. Even though the show is about the amazing and terrible BoJack Horseman, the most controversial character is definitely Diane Nguyen, who I guess you could call BoJack's best friend, even though it's kind of shaky back and forth. But Diane has definitely been a hot topic for most of the show. So Diane started off as the show's moral compass, I suppose, / voice of reason in the first season. And actually a lot of people found this boring, but a lot of people actually thought that this was a really good way to have this character, especially because in the first season, Diane is writing a book about BoJack. So it makes sense that she'd be the moral compass or the voice of reason, because she's trying to do a good job depicting this person's life. So it makes sense. But season 2 and 3 is really where they deal with more of the political aspects of Diane, and definitely the complexity of her relationship with Mr. Peanut Butter, her husband. Some examples of this in terms of her relationship life is she had a very big argument with Mr. Peanut Butter. She had a few, but in season 2 she had a very massive one over surprise parties. That's when people sort of grew against her because they don't like the idea that someone tried to do something nice for her and she's not appreciating of it. Abandoning Mr. Peanut Butter is a big one. She abandoned Mr. Peanut Butter in the sense that she went to Cordovia to basically help in this impoverished country, and she left early but didn't tell Mr. Peanut Butter and stayed at BoJack's house for a few weeks. In season 2 and 3, the big things that happen in terms of politics that people hate is that she had an entire episode on gun control where she was very double standardy towards gun control. At one hand, she was incredibly against guns, and at the other hand, she also wanted guns for exclusively women. Another thing was Hank Hippopopoulos. In this world, Hank Hippopopoulos is an incredibly famous celebrity who has several sexual harassment allegations towards him, and Diane single-handedly tries to take him down. And there is an abortion topic where she doesn't like the way that a celebrity is talking about abortion, even though she's having an abortion. People really kind of started to turn against Diane in these moments. In season 4, she wasn't the worst. The only awful thing she really did was she was incredibly against Mr. Peanut Butter's campaign. She thought that he was an idiot, which it's true. Like, he's not the smartest guy, but I mean, come on, that is your husband. That's kind of mean, right? The season 4 finale. This is definitely where people collectively started to despise Diane. She goes on this trip to Hawaii with Mr. Peanut Butter, and she tells him about a secret desire that she always had, which is to have a bell room, which is a library room themed like the Bell Library from Beauty and the Beast. Mr. Peanut Butter decides to build a Bell's library for her. And so when they come back from their trip to Hawaii, she has the Bell Library. And she thinks that it's too much, and she doesn't like it because she wanted it to stay a dream that she had. She didn't want it to be reality, and she felt like it ruined her ambition for her, and she felt really sad about it, and they got in an argument, and then it ended in them contemplating a divorce. That was kind of really the part where everyone turned against her. In season 5, people hated her just because she was mean to a lot of people, especially Mr. Peanut Butter's girlfriend. Sure, she was justified in a lot of it, but she was mean, really mean to a lot of people. Now we've gone over all the reasons why people are against her. There are people out there who think that she's really ascended as a character, and then there's some people that think after season 1 she became awful and they hate her. I think that it's a little of both. Because I think that she is a dissection of the voice of reason archetype. Or another character who fills this archetype is Brian from Family Guy. But the thing about Brian is that throughout the show's continuation, he becomes a worse and worse character. He becomes more cynical, more annoying, more hate-filled, and I think that that's on accident. I don't think they did that on purpose. I think that he became a bad character kind of just because of writing. But I think Diane is purposely a bad character. I think she's analysis on that type of character. I think that this is incredibly true towards a lot of scenes and a lot of quotes that are made in the show. One big one is towards the beginning of season 5, there's an entire episode on Diane where she's sad about her divorce. And she acknowledges that even though she was the one who wanted this, now that she has it, she feels lost and she doesn't know what to do. And that's showing that when she thinks she's morally better than everyone, she's lost and miserable. And I think that this is incredibly accentuated in the end of season 5 when she says this to her boss. She says, "I'm a hypocrite, I'm miserable, and I make other people miserable. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't be a trusted news source, or an authority, or a role model for anybody." And even though she's still a bad person, I think that that's the point. I think the point is that she is an incredibly flawed person who is self-aware that she constantly tries to be morally upright above people, even though she's a hypocrite. But I think what the show's acknowledging, especially with her relationship to Bojack, is that she has to be the moral high ground, even though she's definitely not in any way, shape, or form, because Bojack needs someone to be better for him. Even though she is, and she acknowledges that she is not a good person, she is a bad person who's a hypocrite, who is miserable, she has to be better for Bojack, even if she has to pretend she's better for Bojack. And I think that's what the end of season 5 really points out for Diane and really points out for Bojack, especially with him heading to rehab at the very end of the show. And I definitely think that this is a really interesting character. I think that she's purposely awful, but she's kind of a masterpiece. But she's also kind of a disaster. And I think that that's the point. Because in real life, people can be both. People are both a lot. And I think it's a really realistic take on the type of people who think they're better than other people. And definitely the type of people who think they're better than other people, but acknowledge it, but know that they do have to be that way for people who are indisputably worse than them, who they are friends with, who they're trying to be there for. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely plenty of parts where I hate Diane, but I've come to terms with it, especially at season 5, that it seems like they're doing it on purpose. And I think that that's really good. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. If you liked it, go ahead and leave a like or a comment. And if you want to see more of my content, you can subscribe. And that's going to be all. See you later.